Andrew, I just want to come back to you on this point we were talking about in the last hour. The heart of this case is two questions, right? Whether the motive exists to interfere in the election and whether Donald Trump did indeed commit the fraud he's charged with.
Absolutely. And so the part of that, we've got a very strong case that's been presented by the state, which is the motive that there was an intent to do this about the election. The sort of the money quote today is not something that's controvertible because it's not just Davidson saying it now on the stand. It's something he said at the time. Right. So that was sort of the theme of the day. Everything he said was tied to a document. I mean, in many ways, he was there just almost as a reader with occasional color. But, you know, this was something that he could be lying up one side and down the other on everything else in the world. And I'm not saying he is. It's just, it doesn't matter. You know exactly what happened. And so the remaining piece, though, which the state really does need to get to, you know, they have time, is to get to the part about the false business records. How does Donald Trump know about them? He doesn't have to have created them, but it has to be part of the scheme. And so that is really the key. I suspect that we're going to hear about sort of how they were created and how they landed in the White House and how the checks get written. Because let's remember, it's not like Donald Trump just writes $130,000. He writes more than that. And so some story has to have been told to him. And the invoices, if they're in front of him in the White House, that's going to be a huge amount of the answer because they lay out exactly what was going on and the falsity of the scheme. So
and that's something Pomerantz writes about in his book. And I've noticed that Pomerantz is nowhere near this trial. He left the district attorney's office before Bragg decided to bring this case at all. And Trump is so acutely aware I mean, I think what we've learned through the Pecker testimony is just how advanced Trump is in the art of projection. And the attacks on Pomerantz are all, I think, because Pomerantz explicitly writes about not just Trump's role in the checks, but where he writes them in the Oval Office.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, what you do get from this is, you know, when I was a prosecutor, and I'm sure you were thinking the same, which is you should try and think, what would you do if you were the defendant? Like, you try and think like a criminal. And then you also think about what would the person have done.
Pause for a second. He's also the Republican nominee. Keep going.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yes, we're down to reality. And then you also compare that to what would somebody do in that position if they were innocent? Like, how would that behavior look differently? So, you know, I've said that with respect to the tape recording that the jury has not heard it yet. They've had the opening referring to it. But there, you know, what I'm sort of struck with is that you don't have Donald Trump reacting the way an innocent person would react, which is, what are you talking about? Like, I don't know this woman, or she made up the story, and what do you mean? Instead, his big thing is, are we going to pay in cash or not? I mean, that's not exactly what you would do as an innocent person.
To which Cohen says, no, and the only person I talk to like that are my children.
That's right. Well, because he's a child grown old, and everybody's got to talk to Donald Trump that way as well. And I think, you know, when you were running the tape at the top of the show, you know, Trump when he's scared and Trump when he's aggravated sounds like someone calling into a radio show, bleating about the things that they're scared of. You know, it's Don from Queens, and this guy Biden is really getting under my skin. And you know that he's also doing this to his lawyers when he's not in court.
Yeah.
And they end up, I think, engaging in this performance art for him that undermines his case and undermines his defense. And it was really on display today. When we were hearing a second hearing around the gag orders. And it was, I think, in Trump's defense team's interest to be calm, collected, and specific in defending him against these claims of violating the gag order. And instead, you had Todd Blanche, I think, being even more performative than he was the last time when Justice Merchan warned him then, you're losing all credibility with the court. And today it was disastrous. And I'm assuming in his real life, which is a life apart from Donald Trump and being Donald Trump's attorney, he's a more calm, collected, sober-minded person. But today he was buffoonish.
Todd Blanche, though, I mean, tell me if these guys all think they're different, because Michael Cohen was Todd Blanche before Todd Blanche. So was Evan Corcoran, who became a star witness in the Mar. I mean, does Todd Blanche seem to think he'll be different from all the other people who've represented Rudy Giuliani, who's now can't justify his expenses? I mean, does he seem to think he's next level?
Well, I think typically Donald Trump puts his finger on people who are corruptible. He has a radar for that. And there are people who are attracted to him for the wrong reasons because they think he's a great businessman, which he wasn't. They think he's a sophisticated thinker, which he isn't. They think that he is this bona fide celebrity, which he is, but he's a celebrity for the wrong reasons. And they fall into that world, and then it's easy for him to play them. I do think that Todd Blanche is a different person from Michael Cohen, and he's a different person from some of the others, which in a way makes it more interesting because he's like this vanilla ice cream cone who's being stomped on the sidewalk. Whereas Michael Cohen came into this, you know, everything Michael Cohen says, he's almost like out of a comic book about grifting in New York. I don't think Todd Blanche is that way.
But you do have Evan Corcoran, who became a very important witness and narrator, turned over all of his notes to Jack Smith in the Mar-a-Lago documents case. You do have Rudy Giuliani, who represented Trump and Mueller all the way through the election denialism, the 61 cases, lost 60, is now bankrupt and paying. I mean, you don't have many people who've represented Trump who've come out better for it.
And escape.
Or have come out better, enhanced.
No, I don't think there are. I don't think there are any.
Tacopina might be the only exception, and he seems
well, but even he's been, I think, sort of, you know, he's been pushed to the side. Certainly, I don't even know if he'll get paid. That's the other thing. You know, if you don't perform well in front of Donald Trump, he won't pay his bills. And this sort of trade-off that I'll get publicity or I'll get a good paycheck and it'll be worth whatever professional and personal embarrassments I suffer on the way to that roadshow, I think it often doesn't come together for people.
What do you make of what you're saying in the courtroom?
I was surprised today that the defense lawyers went after Davidson on extortion. You and your sleazy client are trying to extort our client. So, I mean, first off, it's highly disputable whether that's true. But even if it was, you know what's not a defense to falsification of business records? Extortion. You know what's not a defense to campaign finance violations? Extortion. It's like playing tennis with a golf club, right? It's not the right equipment to use to win the game.
So why do you think they did it?
I think Donald Trump wanted to go after him. They wanted to tar this guy. You're sleazy, and your client's lying, and you extorted me. You're the ones who went to me, not the other way around. So, from a legal matter, it shouldn't matter.
And doesn't that assume that the jury thinks this whole thing is elegant? I mean, what juror is sitting in there thinking that a tabloid and a porn star and a playmate is some story that, I mean, isn't the story already pretty sordid?
Yeah, they're all in the dirt together. That's why it's weird that Trump is trying to say, yeah, you guys are dirtbags. Well, you're hanging around with these guys, right? This is someone you had an affair with. This is a lawyer you worked with. And even if you prove that Davidson is less than, you know, good, I guess, you have corroboration in the form of David Pecker, who was very powerful, I thought, and in the future testimony of Michael Cohen. And that's what they're doing. They're trying to protect Michael Cohen because they know he's the key witness and he's got flaws. But now they've got two important witnesses. They're going to back up what he's going to say.
What do you make of the lawyering, to pick up on Tim Swain?
It's certainly on the government side, there's the state side. This is an experienced team. It shows Josh Steinglass is it's just a pleasure, just as a technical matter, as having been a trial lawyer. It was wonderful to see it in action, not just to read it. He also at times could be so charming. He has this line about they were doing something at a store, and he says, I hate to ask this, but could you describe the decor? Because it's around Christmas time, and it was just like over the top, but it was just adorable. And, you know, at a very high-profile trial. So, you know, you just sense that they have, you know, this is what he does. He's somebody who has chosen to be just a trial lawyer. And, you know, this is somebody who normally, you know, could be a supervisor 10 times over, and he just likes being in court. And it shows. And that's true of Susan Hoffinger, Matthew Colangelo. And it's a very solid team. I mean, this is definitely Alvin Bragg has put the A-team on this. I'm not saying they're going to win. It's just
no. Only a jury decides that, right?
On the defense side, it's fascinating. You know, you do have, as Todd Blanche follows a mold, which is dangerous, of somebody who was at a law firm, who left a law firm to have one and only one client. That is putting enormous pressure on himself in terms of a responsibility you have as a lawyer, which is that you are retained, you are not hired. And what I mean by that is you are an officer of the court. And he has gotten in trouble with Justice Merchan for not, according to the justice, really adhering to that obligation. You have to push back on your client. That is what you do as a lawyer. And if you can't do that, you can't go to court to be saying these things. You do not want, obviously, a judge saying, in any case, let alone this one, you've lost all credibility.
Which he